Elden Ring is one of the most hyped games coming out this year, and for good reason. It's a FromSoft title and the next evolution in the Soulsborne formula, taking the genre's classic, challenging gameplay into a massive open world. But fear not, Elden Ring is not Dark Souls 4, and if you've been turned off or intimidated by Soulsborne games in the past, this game has been built to balance those frustrations, making Elden Ring immensely more appealing to a wider audience. Here are the 6 reasons why we think Elden Ring is the most accessible Soulsborne game ever, and why you should play it too. Number 1 on our list is skippable bosses. Now, Dark Souls games are well known for memorable and challenging boss encounters, and Elden Ring will certainly be no exception. In fact, from what we've seen so far, the bosses in Elden Ring may be some of the toughest FromSoft enemies to date. With a wide range of unpredictable attacks in multiple stages, in true FromSoft style, even basic enemies in this game can quickly put you in the dirt if you're not paying attention, and the new field bosses found all over the open world of Elden Ring, like giant dragons and stone golems, can quickly ruin your day in just a few hits. However, most bosses in Elden Ring, including field bosses and some legacy dungeon bosses, can be completely skipped. See that dragon in the distance? He may stalk you for a bit, but you have a faster horse and you can ride away before he gets too close. Even the first major dungeon of the game, Stormveil Castle, with its insane demigod, can be completely skipped, and players can move freely on to the next area if they prefer. Don't get us wrong, Elden Ring is hard, but the pace at which you tackle the game's bosses is completely up to you. You can choose to avoid many of them completely or return to them later when you have better gear or are higher level. Number 2 on our list is more forgivable game mechanics. Now, this comes in many forms in Elden Ring, but the main point here is that the user experience of the game has been greatly streamlined as compared to previous FromSoft titles to help players avoid some classic frustrations. One of the most obvious of these forgiving gameplay mechanics is fast travel. With a giant open world like Elden Ring, of course, fast travel does make sense, but there's also no penalty at all for using it, which is great. No costs, no cooldowns. You can fast travel to any previously discovered site of grace as long as you aren't currently deep in a dungeon. And speaking of dungeons, many dungeon bosses or difficult open world encounters have a new resurrection mechanic called Stakes of Marika. These offer a secondary revive point that's often closer to that boss or difficult encounter than the nearest bonfire site, known as Sites of Lost Grace in Elden Ring. This means you won't spend nearly as much time running back to engage with that boss, and can instead spend that time learning mechanics and doing better the next time around. Number 3 on our list has to do with the story. Now, FromSoft titles are well known for being sometimes cryptic and fragmented when it comes to their unfolding storylines, requiring multiple playthroughs or external wikis and YouTube content to fully understand their creative vision for each title. Now, from what we've seen so far, Elden Ring is really setting out to change this, providing players with extensive backstory and plenty of opportunities to learn about the game's lore and become fully immersed in the experience. For one thing, Elden Ring has many more NPCs than previous Soulsborne titles, and each NPC has a detailed backstory that they explain to the player as a means of opening up new areas for discovery or new side quests for completing. Even the items themselves in Elden Ring are literally dripping with context and explanation. Nearly every item you'll see in the game has a detailed description, often mentioning one of the world's major factions or characters that had some impact on the creation of that item. So it seems like compared to other FromSoft titles, Elden Ring will have a much more accessible story that players will be able to start unraveling right from the start. I couldn't leave this list without discussing the trustworthy spirit steed in Elden Ring, known simply as Torrent. This horse adds so much to the game in many different ways, whether it's exploration, speed, or combat. Now, of course, you don't have to use Torrent at all, but the fact that he's there, giving you those options, is a huge positive for Elden Ring because he does make the game significantly easier than it would have been otherwise. Just in terms of movement and speed, Torrent makes it easy to traverse the big open world of Elden Ring. You can sprint without losing stamina as long as you're outside of combat, and his double jumps as well as spirit spring jumps, basically insane jump pads located strategically throughout the lands between, make progressing to new areas even vertically a breeze. And then there is the mounted combat system of Elden Ring, which is surprisingly intuitive and powerful. While riding Torrent, many enemies become much easier to defeat as they can be outrun, outmaneuvered, or kited away from while using flanking attacks or ranged magic or arrows. Using Torrent in this way is a fantastic means to conquer big groups of enemies out in the open world, or to tackle those giant field bosses that we mentioned earlier, where you can quickly sprint to avoid their AoE attacks, or reposition yourself underneath their legs for some quick damaging strikes. All in all, Torrent is such a game-enriching feature that many players are going to love, and it makes the game that much more fun to play. Number 5 on our list is Summoning Spirits in Elden Ring. This is yet another system that will support new players more than existing Soulsborne veterans, and help to make the game more accessible. Spirits in Elden Ring can be summoned to fight alongside you in difficult encounters, and while they don't always do a lot of damage necessarily, they do often serve as a great distraction, especially in boss battles, giving you more time and opportunities to get in your attacks without getting too shotted by that boss. My favorite spirit summon in the network test was the Wolf Spirits. There's 3 of these guys that spread out to attack your target from different angles, so unless the boss had a huge AoE attack, these wolves can survive for a good bit of time, allowing you the time needed to damage that boss and ultimately succeed. Again, this is a great mechanic specifically for newer players who may be less familiar with Dark Souls-style combat, plus it's a fun, customizable experience that can take your build to the next level. Last but not least on our list is the significance of stealth in Elden Ring, which is yet another major in-game mechanic the players can use to their advantage to get the upper hand on enemies. Now yes, when it comes to boss battles against things like giant dragons, stealth attacking may not be the most efficient tactic, but in most other situations, stealth is completely viable, and it will allow players to silently and easily take out solo enemies. Once perfected, this is going to make combat in the open world or in legacy dungeons much easier, and it gives players the freedom of choice when it comes to how they want to engage with Elden Ring. Keep in mind too that stealth also seems to be impacted by the environment, so stealthing at nighttime or in darker areas can be more effective. So if you're a newer player, definitely look into stealth in Elden Ring to quickly eliminate those enemies, or just avoid combat altogether if you prefer. So there you have it, 6 reasons why Elden Ring is not simply Dark Souls 4, but it is in fact built to be the most accessible, most appealing Soulsborne game of all time, allowing almost any player of any skill to pick up the game and get off and running with minimal effort. I, for one, am really looking forward to this title, and if you are as well, make sure to check out our previous huge beginner guide detailing 101 things you need to know before playing Elden Ring. Click on your screen right now to watch that next, or check out our website RPG Dojo for more Elden Ring guides. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.